We've heard from community leaders who care about mental health. We've heard from current and former CHS students to share about their mental health experiences. But do you know what to do if you were in a crisis? It is estimated that 26% of Americans aged 18 or older suffer from a diagnosable mental disorder in a given year. To try and help, this week we spoke to healthcare and community professionals to talk about what to do if you or someone you know is struggling.
My name is Kim Salmons, and I am the school nurse at Chelsea High School. Before we start, I wanted to address that I'm not wearing a mask. It's not because I don't think masks are important, I do. I'm not wearing a mask so I can be heard more clearly in the video, but we are still in the middle of a pandemic, and I highly recommend that people wear a mask in public settings, certainly indoors. For this purpose, I am adequate space away from everybody else. Everyone else behind the camera is wearing a mask, and we're in a wide open space. So I am fully vaccinated and boosted, and I feel comfortable in this situation, but I do recommend people wear masks. So we see a lot of mental health concerns with the students and staff. COVID particularly magnified the number of students and staff having mental health concerns like anxiety and panic.
I may be fine today and everything's calm and going along in my life, and then something suddenly happens. And that happened to all of us 2 years ago in 2020 when COVID came, and none of us expected that. And boy, that really, affected all of us and our mental wellness.
I'm so glad that kids are realizing that they're being affected by things, especially with COVID, and that it's okay to feel emotional. It's okay to, say, hey, I need some help. I need to talk to somebody.
We all have emotions. We all have thoughts. Sometimes we might be nervous to talk about it with people, or we keep it inside. And I'm a firm believer that mental health is just as important as our physical health.
So I'm a pediatrician, and mental health is part of overall health. Whenever I'm talking to patients and their families, that's something that I talk to them about. I've also learned a lot more about mental health since I became a pediatrician, and I understand much more how someone's mental health can affect their physical health, can affect their school success, can affect their relationships.
You can feel the effects of it physically, not just mentally, and I think it's important for people to stay healthy physically and mentally.
So many of our students, so many young people today in general, are just carrying around burdens that are way too heavy, and they shouldn't have to do it alone.
There should not be a stigma that only certain people can feel and talk about feelings and get support.
When a student is struggling, there's lots of indicators. If their behavior is off a little bit, then normally I will find out either through the teacher or through the student. If I have a relationship with the student, then the student comes to me and lets me know. But there's lots of kiddos that I don't have relationships with, because as a dean, I'm interacting with kids on a case-by-case situation. So some of the indicators, whether they're letting me know, Miss, I'm struggling with this, Miss, I want to get things back on track. Sometimes I'll get parents that call me too that are a little worried, but the kid themselves, on my end, it's mostly acting out as a behavior response to something that they're dealing with. And then as a dean, it's up to me to figure out whether or not the kid, it's something that I can support with, or it's something that I need other supports with, like their school counselor or a social worker.
We are a welcoming city and a welcoming school environment, but we also want it to be a place where student needs and family needs can be met and addressed. So providing support for all people that live in Chelsea is critical.
Everyone deserves to feel happy and safe. And I don't think we say that to people enough. I don't think that's recognized as like a legitimate right to feel safe and comfortable and accepted and supported.
So sometimes people don't recognize that they are struggling, and I think that the first step is to sort of recognize and admit that things aren't going well, so that if you're not sleeping well, if you're not eating well, if you're having trouble focusing in class, if you're feeling like your moods are all over the place, if you feel like you're crying easily, if you feel like you're losing interest in things that you used to be excited about or that you used to enjoy doing, if you're feeling more withdrawn and like, I don't really want to talk to anybody at all, those can be signs that you're struggling. And I think sometimes it's hard to recognize those signs.
I think the first thing, if you need help, is to think about who's a trusted adult, who's an adult that you trust in your life. Maybe it's in your family, maybe it's somewhere in the community, whether it's church or a sports league or an agency that you're involved in, or maybe it's here at school. Maybe it's a teacher, maybe it's a social worker, maybe it's one of the school counselors. But finding a trusted adult that you can be honest with and know that it's gonna maybe feel a little weird to kind of talk about it, but to be able to tell them how you're feeling, what you're thinking, how it's impacting you.
Okay. The difference between being sad and depressed for me, I think depression is something that's ongoing for a student. When a student feels sad, it's usually something that they can get themselves out of relatively quickly by distraction or whatnot. When they're depressed, it's an ongoing issue that they need support with for the most part. It's not something you can get out of on your own without learning the coping skills that either I can support with or the school counselors or the social workers.
What should you do if you have a friend who needs help? As a friend, your job is not to fix anything. You have to remember that you're not a professional, so it's not your responsibility by yourself to fix or to cure or to heal or to save your friend. You play a very important role in supporting your friend, mainly by being there for that person and listening and not being judgmental, even sometimes just sitting quietly next to them and letting them know that you're there. And then encouraging your friend to seek help.
If you are in crisis, so that means like you're feeling really sad and you're having trouble making decisions, or you feel like you want to hurt yourself, or you have been hurting yourself, it's really important to get urgent help. And there's a couple ways that you could do that. So one of the things would be you could call your pediatrician, and your pediatrician could get you in touch with a psychologist or a psychiatrist and do a safety assessment, which sounds maybe a little scary or funny, but what we do is we make sure that kids are safe, that they're safe to be by themselves, that they're safe to go home. And then once we've done that, then we figure out how we can best help them. So your pediatrician could help you with that. Or if you're home and it's the weekend, there's an emergency crisis team that's called BEST, but it's BEST, and it's Boston Emergency Stabilization Team. And so if you call that number, you'll talk to someone and then they'll actually come to your house and do an evaluation and talk to you. And then the other thing would be if you're really feeling unsafe and you're not sure what you need, you can go to the emergency room, talk to one of the adults in your home and ask them to take you to the emergency room for help. For anybody who's in an urgent crisis situation, those are some of the things that you could do.
Knowing that you have a safe place to be is the first step in feeling better and feeling able to reach out for help.
You know, I think the first thing you have to do as a person is you got to be strong. You know, when you're on an airplane and they say if the air pressure goes down, the mask will come down. If you're with the little kid, you know, you're not supposed to put the mask on the kid. That's what you instinctively think. I got to help the kid. But guess what's going to happen to you? You're going to pass out. And then both of you are going to go down, right? You got to help yourself first and then pass it to the kid. You got to protect yourself. You got to make yourself strong. You got to eat the right things. And you got to treat your body like a temple. And if you do that, somebody comes asking for your help, you're going to be able to give it. But if you're weak and you don't think highly of yourself and you're vulnerable and you're doing all the bad things, you're going to give them bad advice.
This tattoo is a semicolon. And semicolon over the last few years has been representing a symbol for that your life continues, that your life is not over, that your story is not over. And so I wanted this to represent that for me as a reminder. And inside it it says 2.9. And 2.9 represents years that have decreased for Black folks in terms of life expectancy. And that's what's because of the combination of racism and COVID. And so I wanted this as symbolic about why mental health, not just worrying about it as a hotline for getting support, not just having a tattoo, but to feel comfortable talking about it to people who look like me, who don't look like me, older, younger, or same age.
So this is the end of our journey. For now. But this shouldn't be the end of the conversation. It's important that we keep talking about mental health because although our society has come a long way, there is still a lot of work to be done to remove the stigma. If you enjoyed this project and are interested in contributing to future campaigns, consider joining TAP, which is the Teen Action Project who sponsored these videos. Yasmin Hung and Missy Valentin are advisors of TAP and could be found at CHS and contacted through these emails. In the meantime, please remember to take good care and stay healthy, Chelsea.